The boy was disappearing. Not metaphorically. Literally. 8-year-old Tyler Harrington's body had become so thin that Harper Bennett could see his heartbeat through his pajama shirt when she walked into that Connecticut mansion for the first time. 86 days without real food. Doctors baffled. Specialists helpless. A billionaire father watching his only child fade into nothing while everyone called it autism. But Harper knew better the second she saw them together. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from right now. Richard Harrington stood over his son in that cavernous dining room, arms crossed, voice tight with barely controlled desperation. Tyler sat motionless at a table built for 12, staring at scrambled eggs like they were coiled snakes ready to strike. "Tyler, please. Just one bite. One bite and you can go back to your room." The boy didn't move. Didn't blink. Just sat there, small and still and fading. "Tyler, I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you. Eat." Harper watched Tyler's hands start trembling. Watched his breathing quicken. Watched his eyes go glassy with panic that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with the man looming over him. Richard reached for the fork. Tyler flinched like he'd been struck. "Stop." Harper's voice cut through the room before she decided to speak. Richard's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me. You're scaring him." Harper set down her bag and moved into the dining room, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. "Step back. I'm his father. And right now, you're the reason he won't eat." Harper positioned herself between them. "Step back, Mr. Harrington." For 3 seconds, Richard looked ready to throw her out. She was hired help, after all. A 28-year-old maid with no credentials and zero right to tell a billionaire how to parent his child. But something in Harper's voice, absolute certainty, made him hesitate. Richard stepped back. The change in Tyler was immediate. His shoulders dropped half an inch. His breathing slowed. Still scared, still tense, but no longer in full panic mode. Harper crouched down several feet from Tyler's chair, making herself smaller, less threatening. "Hey, Tyler. I'm Harper. I just got here, so I don't know all the rules yet." Tyler's eyes flicked toward her, then away. "But here's what I'm thinking," Harper continued, voice soft and conversational. "This breakfast situation. It's not working. You're stressed. Your dad's stressed. The eggs are probably cold by now anyway." A tiny muscle in Tyler's jaw twitched. Almost like he wanted to respond but couldn't. "So what if we tried something different?" Harper kept her gaze on Tyler, ignoring Richard's presence completely. "What if we got rid of all this food, went somewhere else, and you and me, just us, we figure out what sounds good?" Tyler's head turned. Just slightly. But his eyes met hers directly for the first time. Behind them, Richard inhaled sharply. "Just us," Harper repeated. "No pressure. No rules. Nobody hovering or watching or counting bites. Just two people eating together because that's what people do." Tyler's lips moved. No sound came out, but Harper could read the word, alone. "Yeah. Alone. No dads allowed." Harper smiled gently. "What do you say?" For a long moment, Tyler didn't move. Then, slowly, so slowly Harper almost missed it, he nodded. Richard made a sound halfway between relief and something that might have been pain. Harper stood up and turned to face him. "I need you to leave. He's my son. And he can't breathe when you're in the room." Harper kept her voice low but firm. "I don't know why yet. But it's not about the food, Mr. Harrington. It's about you." The words hit Richard like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, emotions warring across his features, denial, anger, grief, guilt. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked at Tyler, who had gone completely still again, waiting to see if his father would explode. Richard's hands clenched into fists. Then, slowly, he unclenched them. "Fine," he said hoarsely. "But if he eats something, anything, you tell me immediately." He walked out without looking back. The moment Richard disappeared, Tyler's entire body sagged like someone had cut his strings. He slumped forward, elbows on the table, face buried in his hands. Not crying. Just breathing. Like he'd been holding his breath the entire time his father was present. Harper waited. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Finally, Tyler looked up. "He hates me." The words were so quiet Harper almost missed them. But the pain in them, raw, devastating, absolute, hit her like a freight train. "Your dad doesn't hate you." "Yes, he does." Tyler's voice was flat. "Matter of fact. He can't even look at me anymore. Not since Mommy died." Harper's chest tightened. There it was. The real wound. "When did your mom die, Tyler?" 2 years ago. 7 months. 11 days. Tyler recited it like a prisoner counting days in a cell. "Car accident. My fault." "Why do you think it was your fault?" Tyler's hand started trembling again. "Because she was coming to get me. From school. I called her because I forgot my lunch and the other kids were teasing me and I just wanted her and," his voice cracked. "And Daddy said she should have waited. That the meeting was important. That this never should have happened." Harper felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Your dad said that?" "He didn't know I was listening." Tyler's eyes were dry but devastated. "But I heard him. On the phone with Grandpa. He said if Mommy had just waited like he asked, she'd still be alive. He said he couldn't even look at me without." Tyler stopped. Swallowed hard. Didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Harper understood now. Tyler wasn't refusing food because of sensory issues or autism or behavioral problems. He was starving himself because he believed he didn't deserve to eat. Because he'd internalized his father's grief as blame. Because every time Richard looked at him with that haunted, hollow expression, Tyler saw confirmation that he'd killed his mother. And slowly, day by day, bite by bite, Tyler was punishing himself the only way an 8-year-old knew how. "Tyler." Harper moved closer, careful not to spook him. "Listen to me very carefully. Your mom's death was not your fault. It was an accident. Accidents aren't caused by kids who need their moms. Then why won't Daddy love me anymore?" Tyler's voice broke completely. "Why does he only try to fix me? Why can't he just?" He stopped, tears finally spilling over. Harper wanted to pull him into a hug. Wanted to promise everything would be okay. Wanted to march into Richard Harrington's office and shake him until he understood what his grief was doing to his child. But she couldn't promise anything yet. And Tyler needed truth more than comfort. "Your dad's drowning," Harper said quietly. "When people are drowning, they can't save anyone else. They can barely breathe themselves. He doesn't hate you, Tyler. He hates himself. And he doesn't know how to tell the difference anymore." Tyler wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "So I have to keep disappearing?" The question nearly broke Harper's heart. Because that's exactly what Tyler was doing, making himself smaller, quieter, less present. Hoping that if he disappeared enough, maybe his father's pain would disappear too. "No," Harper said firmly. "You don't have to disappear. Your dad does need to fix something, but it's not you. It's himself." "How?" "I don't know yet. But we're going to figure it out." Harper held out her hand. "Starting with getting some food in you. Real food. Food you actually like. Deal?" Tyler stared at her hand for a long moment. Then, hesitantly, he reached out and took it. His hand was so small. So fragile. Like holding a bird with broken wings. Harper helped him stand, and they walked together toward the kitchen. Tyler moved slowly, unsteadily, like someone who'd been sick for a very long time. Which he had been. Just not the sickness anyone had diagnosed. In the kitchen, Harper opened the massive refrigerator and stared at rows of organic vegetables, grass-fed meats, artisanal cheeses, everything expensive and healthy and completely untouched. "What sounds good?" Harper asked. Tyler's answer was so quiet she almost missed it: peanut butter and jelly. Harper smiled. "Perfect. Let's make it together." They did. Harper found bread, peanut butter, grape jelly. She let Tyler spread the peanut butter himself, his hands shaking but determined. She cut the sandwich into triangles because Tyler said that's how his mom used to do it. They sat at the kitchen island together. Just two people eating sandwiches. No pressure. No audience. No expectations. Tyler picked up half a triangle. Stared at it for a long moment. Then took the smallest bite Harper had ever seen. He chewed slowly. Swallowed. Looked up at Harper with surprise in his eyes. "It doesn't hurt," he whispered. "It's not supposed to hurt." Tyler took another bite. Then another. Within 5 minutes, he'd eaten half the sandwich, more than he'd eaten in nearly 3 months. Subscribe if this story is hitting different. Comment your country. From the hallway, Harper heard a sound. She turned to see Richard standing in the doorway, tears streaming down his face, watching his son eat. Tyler saw him too. Immediately froze. The sandwich fell from his hands. The fear that flashed across Tyler's face in that moment, pure, instinctive terror of his own father, was the most heartbreaking thing Harper had ever witnessed. Richard took a step forward. Tyler flinched back. "Dad, I'm sorry." Tyler's voice was panicked. "I know I'm not supposed to eat kid food, I know it's wrong, I'm sorry." "Tyler." Richard's voice broke completely. But Tyler was spiraling now, hyperventilating, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "Please don't be mad, please, I'll stop, I'll eat the healthy food, I'll do better, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Richard dropped to his knees. "Tyler, stop. Please stop apologizing." But Tyler couldn't stop. 2 years of guilt and fear and desperate need for his father's approval came pouring out in broken sobs and fractured apologies that made no sense because nothing about this situation made sense. Richard reached for him. Tyler scrambled away. The look on Richard's face, the moment he realized his own son was afraid of him, was devastating. "He doesn't hate you," Harper said quietly to Richard. "He's terrified that you hate him. There's a difference." Richard looked at Harper with eyes that had finally seen the truth. "What have I done?" Tyler had pressed himself against the kitchen cabinet, small and shaking, watching his father with the wariness of an animal that's been hurt too many times. And Harper understood that healing this family would require more than getting Tyler to eat. It would require teaching a billionaire that the most valuable thing he could give his son wasn't food or doctors or solutions. It was himself. "Tyler," Richard said, his voice raw and broken. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you 2 years ago." Tyler didn't respond. But he didn't run either. Richard took a shaky breath. "Your mother's death wasn't your fault. It was mine." Richard couldn't finish the sentence. He knelt on the kitchen floor, tears streaming down his face, mouth opening and closing like a drowning man trying to breathe. Tyler remained pressed against the cabinet, watching his father fall apart with the confused terror of a child who'd never seen his parent cry. Harper stayed perfectly still, knowing this moment was either going to shatter them completely or become the first crack in the wall they'd built between each other. "Mr. Harrington," she said softly. "Tyler needs to hear this." Richard shook his head, unable to speak. "Then show me," Harper said. "Show me what happened." Richard looked up at her, face twisted with anguish. Then, slowly, he pulled out his phone. His hands trembled so badly he almost dropped it twice. He scrolled through his photos, past recent business conferences, past empty attempts at documenting Tyler's childhood that he'd clearly abandoned, until he reached 2 years ago. He turned the screen toward Harper. The photo showed a woman with warm eyes and Tyler's exact smile, holding a much younger, much healthier Tyler on a beach somewhere. Both were laughing. Both looked whole. "Catherine," Richard whispered. "My wife." Tyler made a small sound. He'd pushed himself further into the corner, but his eyes were locked on the photo of his mother. "She was," Richard's voice cracked. "She was everything I wasn't. Patient. Present. She knew how to reach Tyler when his autism made the world too overwhelming. She knew which foods he'd tolerate, which sounds hurt his ears, how to calm him during meltdowns. She was a perfect mother." Harper heard the self-loathing in those last words. "And I was a perfect failure," Richard continued. "Always at the office. Always prioritizing deals over dinner. Always promising next week, next month, next year I'd be more present. Catherine begged me to slow down. Said Tyler needed his father. I said Tyler needed financial security." He laughed bitterly. "Like a kid can eat money." Tyler's breathing had gone shallow. "The day she died," Richard said, each word seeming to cost him, "we had a massive fight that morning. Screaming match. About me. About my absence. About how I was building an empire while missing my son's entire childhood." Drop a like and subscribe for part 2. Harper's chest tightened. She could see where this was going. Catherine said she was done. Done waiting for me to choose my family over my company. She'd packed bags, hers and Tyler's. She was taking him and leaving. Richard looked at Tyler, whose eyes had gone impossibly wide. "I said terrible things. Told her she was overreacting. Told her she didn't understand the pressure I was under. Told her that if she left, she'd destroy Tyler's stability." Richard's face crumpled. "She left anyway. Drove away crying. I had a meeting in 30 minutes, a $3 billion acquisition, so I didn't go after her. I just let her go." The kitchen had gone deathly silent except for Richard's ragged breathing. An hour later, the school called. Tyler had forgotten his lunch. He was upset, having a hard day, asking for Catherine. They couldn't reach her, her phone was off because she was so angry at me. So they called my office. Tyler was shaking now, his small body racked with tremors. "I told them to tell Tyler to wait," Richard said, voice hollow. "The meeting was critical. I'd pick him up myself after. Just a few hours." But Catherine's phone came back on, Harper said quietly, already knowing. Richard nodded. She saw the missed calls from the school. Saw Tyler needed her. "And despite everything, despite our fight, despite leaving me, despite being devastated, she turned around. Because that's who she was. Tyler needed her, and nothing else mattered." Tyler let out a broken sob. She was going 70 in a 45 zone. Crying while driving. Distracted. A semi ran a red light and Richard couldn't continue. He buried his face in his hands. Harper felt tears burning her own eyes. Tyler wasn't at school when it happened, was he? No. My assistant had already picked him up. Catherine didn't know. She died rushing to save a son who didn't need saving. Richard looked up at Tyler through his tears. "And I blamed myself so completely, so absolutely, that I couldn't look at you without seeing her face. Without remembering that she died because I wasn't there. Because I made her so miserable she tried to leave. Because I was the one who should have picked you up but didn't." Tyler slid down the cabinet until he was sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around his knees, rocking slightly. "I know I made you think it was your fault," Richard continued, voice breaking. I heard myself say those words, that it never should have happened, that she should have waited. I was talking about myself. About my choices. But you heard it and thought. That I killed Mommy, Tyler whispered. Yes. Richard's sob was guttural. And I was so buried in my own guilt that I didn't see I was burying you in yours. I didn't know how to tell you the truth, that your mother died because of me. That every single thing that went wrong that day was my fault, not yours. Harper watched father and son, both drowning in guilt that neither deserved to carry alone. But there's more, Richard said, voice barely audible. Something worse. Harper's stomach dropped. Mr. Harrington. Tyler deserves the truth. Richard looked directly at his son. After the funeral, I couldn't function. Couldn't work. Couldn't think. The company nearly collapsed. My brother Marcus had to take over everything while I fell apart. Tyler was listening now, despite his fear. And every time I looked at you, Richard continued, I saw Catherine. Your eyes. Your smile. The way you tilt your head when you were confused. You were her mirror, and I couldn't bear it. So I stopped looking. The confession landed like a bomb. I hired nannies to do everything. Feed you. Bathe you. Put you to bed. I told myself you needed professional help dealing with your autism and grief. But the truth? Richard's voice shook. I was hiding. Using work as an excuse. Using your autism as an excuse. Anything to avoid facing you and remembering what I destroyed. Subscribe right now. You need to see this. Tyler's face had gone pale. You didn't want me anymore. I didn't know how to want anything anymore, Richard said desperately. I was so broken, Tyler. So full of self-hatred that I couldn't feel anything else. Not even love for my own son. The words hung in the air, brutal in their honesty. Harper wanted to intervene, to soften this somehow, but she understood that these wounds needed air before they could heal. 6 months after the funeral, Richard continued, you started having trouble eating. The doctor said it was sensory issues related to your autism. But I see it now. You started disappearing because I'd already made you disappear. You stopped eating because you felt like you didn't deserve to exist. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. I wanted you to notice me. Richard inhaled sharply. I thought if I got sick enough, you'd have to see me, Tyler said, voice small and broken. You'd have to stop hiding in your office. You'd have to be my dad again. The devastation on Richard's face was absolute. But it didn't work, Tyler continued, tears streaming now. You just hired more people to fix me. More doctors. More nannies. More everyone except you. Richard crawled across the floor toward his son, moving slowly, telegraphing every motion. Tyler didn't run this time. He just watched, wary and hurting and desperate. You're right, Richard said when he was close enough to touch but didn't. Everything you just said is exactly right. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for these 2 years. For making you feel invisible. For making you believe your mother's death was your fault when it was mine. Tyler's lip trembled. Do you still hate looking at me? I never hated looking at you. I hated looking at myself. Richard's voice broke completely. Every time I saw you, I saw my failure. My selfishness. My choice to prioritize money over family. Catherine is dead because of me, and I couldn't forgive myself. Still can't. So you made Tyler forgive himself instead, Harper said quietly. You transferred your guilt onto him because he was small enough to carry it without fighting back. Richard flinched like she'd struck him. Yes. The admission hung there, ugly and true. Tyler uncurled slightly from his protective ball. Daddy? It was the first time Harper had heard him use that word. Richard's entire body went rigid. Do you wish I died instead of Mommy? The question shattered something in Richard. He let out a sound that was barely human, pure anguish-given voice. Then he did something Harper suspected he hadn't done in 2 years. He reached for his son. Tyler tensed, but didn't pull away. Richard's hands shook as he gently, carefully placed them on Tyler's shoulders. No. God, no. Tyler, losing your mother destroyed me. Losing you would end me completely. Then why won't you love me anymore? Because I don't know how, Richard sobbed. I don't know how to love anyone when I hate myself this much. I don't know how to be your father when I failed so completely at being Catherine's husband. I don't know how to look at you and not see everything I destroyed. Tyler was crying now too, silent tears streaming down his too thin face. But I want to learn, Richard said desperately. I want to learn how to be your dad again. How to look at you and see my son instead of my mistakes. I don't know where to start. Hit that subscribe button now. Harper watched them, both broken, both bleeding, finally sharing the same wound instead of suffering alone. This was the moment everything could change. Or everything could stay shattered. Tyler, she said softly. What do you need from your dad? Tyler looked at her, then at Richard, then down at his hands. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, voice barely a whisper, I need him to eat with me. Richard looked confused. What? You never eat with me, Tyler said, words coming faster now. Not since Mommy died. You make other people feed me. You watch from doorways. But you won't sit next to me. Won't share food with me. Mommy always said eating together was how families stayed close. Richard's face went white as understanding crashed over him. I abandoned you at meals too. Tyler nodded. Every breakfast. Every dinner. You're either gone or watching or trying to force me. But you're never just there. Harper felt tears sting her eyes. This 8-year-old had just articulated exactly what was broken, presence. Simple, unglamorous, consistent presence. Richard looked at the half-eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the counter. Tyler, Not now, Tyler interrupted, voice small but firm. Tomorrow. Breakfast. Just you and me and food and no fixing. Can you do that? Richard stared at his son like seeing him for the first time. Yes. I can do that. Tyler searched his father's face for lies. Promise? I promise. Tyler nodded slowly. Then, surprising everyone, he asked, Daddy, are you hungry now? Richard blinked. Yes. I haven't eaten today. Then sit. Tyler pointed to the stool next to him. Harper can make you a sandwich too. It was a test. Harper knew it. Tyler knew it. Richard definitely knew it. The billionaire who commanded boardrooms, closed billion-dollar deals, and ran an empire without blinking looked terrified of sitting next to his 8-year-old son to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But slowly, shakily, Richard Harrington climbed onto the stool beside Tyler. And Harper started making another sandwich. Richard didn't show up for breakfast. Harper found Tyler at 7 a.m. already dressed and sitting at the kitchen table, positioned carefully with 2 place settings he'd arranged himself. One for him. One for his father. Simple plates. Simple cups. A box of cereal between them that Tyler must have dragged from the pantry. The boy sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes fixed on the empty chair across from him. Waiting. Harper's heart sank. How long have you been here? She asked gently. Since 6:30. Tyler's voice was flat. Emotionless. The voice of a child who'd learned not to hope too hard. Daddy said he'd come. Harper checked her watch. 7:14 a.m. Richard was late, but not impossibly late. Maybe he was just getting ready. Maybe he'd overslept after the emotional devastation of yesterday. Maybe. But Harper had spent enough time around broken promises to recognize the shape they took. And Tyler's rigid posture, spine straight, eyes unblinking, barely breathing, told her he recognized it too. "I'm sure he's just," Harper started. "He's not coming." Tyler's matter-of-fact delivery was somehow worse than crying. "He never comes. Tyler. Can you sit with me instead?" Tyler looked up at her with eyes too old for 8. "So it's not as lonely." The request broke something in Harper. She wanted to march upstairs and drag Richard down here by his expensive tie. Instead, she sat in the empty chair. Tyler poured cereal into both bowls with shaking hands. Added milk. Pushed one bowl toward Harper. They ate in silence, Tyler taking mechanical bites that had nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with going through motions he'd practiced 1,000 times alone. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. At 7:52 a.m., Richard finally appeared in the kitchen doorway. He wore a full suit. His phone was pressed to his ear. His laptop bag hung from his shoulder. Tyler went completely still, spoon halfway to his mouth. Richard held up one finger in the universal gesture for wait and continued his phone conversation. "No, Jerry, I need those numbers by noon. The Hong Kong office won't accept." "Yes, I understand, but..." Harper watched Tyler's face shut down. Watched hope drain out of him like water through a crack, leaving nothing behind but hollow resignation. Richard paced while talking, oblivious. "Tell them if they can't deliver by Friday, we'll find another vendor. I don't care about their excuses. Mr. Harrington." Harper's voice cut through sharp enough to make Richard pause. "You're late." Richard looked at her, then at Tyler, then at his watch. Something like guilt flickered across his face. He spoke into the phone, "Jerry, I'll call you back." He hung up and attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sorry, buddy. Work emergency. But I'm here now." Tyler didn't respond. Just set down his spoon and stared at his soggy cereal. Richard checked his watch again. "So, breakfast. Right. He glanced at the cereal box. "That's great. You're eating. That's really great, Tyler." Silence. Richard shifted his weight. Checked his phone. Slid it into his pocket. Checked his watch again. 12 seconds had passed. "Tyler, listen, I have a conference call at 8:15 a.m. Tyler stood up without a word and walked out of the kitchen. Richard watched him go, confusion and relief warring on his face. "Where's he going?" "Away from you." Harper remained seated, arms crossed. "You promised him breakfast. Not a 3-minute check-in before your conference call." "I'm here, aren't I?" "Your body is here. You're not." Richard's face flushed. "I have responsibilities. A company to run. Thousands of employees depending on. You have a son dying upstairs because you can't sit still for 30 minutes. The words landed like a slap. Richard's jaw clenched. "That's not fair. Neither is making an 8-year-old wait an hour and 20 minutes for his father to keep a promise. I had an important call. Everything is more important than Tyler." Harper stood now, anger overriding her employee caution. "That's the problem. Your calls. Your meetings. Your deals. Meanwhile, your son is upstairs right now learning for the 1,000th time that he's not worth your time. Drop a like and subscribe if you're invested." Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it instinctively. "Don't," Harper warned. He looked at her, then at the phone, then toward the stairs where Tyler had disappeared. For a moment, Harper thought he might actually choose his son. Then Richard's phone rang. He answered it. "Marcus, hey, yeah, I saw your email about the merger." Harper walked away before she said something that would get her fired. She found Tyler in his bedroom, sitting on the floor surrounded by those drawings again. But he wasn't looking at the food pictures this time. He'd pulled out different ones, older ones, from before his mother died. They showed a family. Stick figure mom, stick figure dad, stick figure boy. All holding hands. All smiling. In every single drawing, they were eating together. Meals around tables. Picnics in parks. Ice cream on beaches. Every memory Tyler had of feeling loved centered around sharing food with his parents. And now he couldn't do either. He used to come, Tyler said without looking up. Before Mommy died. We ate breakfast together every Saturday. He'd make funny-face pancakes and do silly voices and we'd laugh so much. Harper sat down beside him. What changed? She died on a Saturday. Tyler traced one of the drawings with his finger. We were supposed to have pancakes that morning. But they fought instead. After she died, Daddy never made pancakes again. Never ate breakfast with me again. Like if he avoided Saturdays and pancakes and me, he could pretend she wasn't gone. The clarity in Tyler's assessment was heartbreaking. This child had spent 2 years trying to understand why his father disappeared. I thought if I got sick enough, he'd have to stay, Tyler continued. Like when I had the flu in kindergarten and Mommy stayed home from work for 3 whole days. But getting sick just made Daddy send more people to fix me while he hid more. Harper felt tears prick her eyes. Tyler. I don't think he can do it. Tyler's voice was small. Be my dad again. I think he's too broken. He is broken, Harper admitted. But broken things can be fixed. Not if they don't want to be. The wisdom in those words from an 8-year-old stunned Harper into silence. Footsteps in the hallway made them both look up. Richard appeared in the doorway, phone finally put away, laptop bag set down. He looked exhausted. Tyler, I'm sorry. That call was important, Tyler finished. They're always important. Richard flinched. That's not more important than me. No. Richard stepped into the room. Tyler, that's not true. Then prove it. The challenge in Tyler's voice was new. Raw. Sit here. With me. For 1 hour. No phone. No laptop. No work. Just sit. Richard looked at Tyler, then at his watch, then back at Tyler. Harper could see the calculation happening, the mental inventory of calls he was missing, emails piling up, deals moving forward without him. 1 hour, Tyler repeated. That's all I'm asking. Tyler, I can't just, Richard struggled for words. The company needs. What about what I need? Tyler's voice cracked. Don't I matter? Of course you matter. Then sit down. The simple request hung in the air like a test neither of them knew if Richard could pass. Richard stood frozen, phone buzzing silently in his pocket, responsibility pulling him toward the door while his son pulled him toward the floor. Hit subscribe right now. Harper watched the war play out on Richard's face. Watched him take one step toward Tyler, then hesitate. Watched his hand drift toward his pocket. Watched him look at the door like it was a lifeline. I can't, Richard finally said, voice breaking. Tyler, I want to, but I have a meeting in 7 minutes that's been scheduled for weeks. Investors from Japan. If I miss it, then miss it. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. Please, Daddy. Just this once, choose me. Richard's face crumpled. You don't understand the pressure. You don't understand that I'm dying. Tyler's shout shocked everyone. Harper says it's not just about food. It's about you. I can't eat because every time I try, I remember eating with you and Mommy and being happy, and then I remember you hate me now and my stomach closes and I can't breathe in. He stopped, gasping for air, tears streaming. Richard stood paralyzed, devastation written across his face. "I need you," Tyler sobbed. "Not your money. Not your big house. Not people you pay to take care of me. I need my daddy and you can't. I'm here right now." "No, you're not," Tyler screamed. "You're already gone. You're always already gone." The accusation hit Richard like a physical blow. He staggered backward, hand reaching for the doorframe to steady himself. His phone buzzed again. The meeting. 7 minutes had become 3. Richard pulled out his phone. Stared at it. Looked at Tyler, who'd collapsed into himself, sobbing into his knees, completely broken. Harper held her breath. Richard's thumb hovered over the answer button. "This meeting determines a $100 million investment," he said, voice hollow. "If I don't take it, the deal dies." Tyler didn't respond. Just cried harder. "But if I take it, you die." Richard said it so quietly Harper almost missed it. "That's what you're telling me? That every time I choose work over you, I'm choosing to let you fade away?" Tyler's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Richard looked at the phone. At Tyler. At the phone. Then he did something Harper had never seen a billionaire do. He turned the phone off. Not silent. Not "do not disturb." Off. Tyler's crying stuttered. He looked up, eyes red and swollen, not quite believing what he'd seen. Richard set the phone on Tyler's dresser, walked across the room, and sat down on the floor next to his son. "1 hour," he said, voice shaking. "No phone. No work. Just you and me." Tyler stared at him. "The meeting can happen without me." "But you said." "I say a lot of things that aren't true." Richard wiped at his eyes roughly. "Like that work is more important than you. That I can't spare an hour. That the company will collapse if I'm not available every second." Tyler didn't move, clearly afraid this was temporary, that Richard would bolt the moment his phone stayed off too long. "I'm an addict," Richard said suddenly. "Work is my drug. It's how I avoid feeling anything. Avoid remembering. Avoid facing what I've become. And I've been using that drug to neglect my son for 2 years. Subscribe now so you do not miss the next twist." Harper realized she was holding her breath. "I don't know how to be your dad anymore," Richard continued, tears flowing freely now. "I don't know how to sit with you without my mind racing toward the next deal. I don't know how to be present. But I want to learn. I want to learn so badly it terrifies me." Tyler's hand slowly, hesitantly, reached out. Richard took it. They sat there, hands clasped, both crying, neither speaking. The silence stretched, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Richard's legs started bouncing with restless energy. He glanced toward his phone twice. His breathing was shallow with barely controlled anxiety. But he didn't leave. At the 3-minute mark, Richard whispered, "This is harder than I thought it would be." "What is?" Tyler asked. "Just being still. Being here. Not doing anything." Richard's laugh was shaky. "I've built my entire life around constant motion. Constant productivity. If I'm not working, I'm failing. If I'm not solving problems, I'm wasting time. But you're with me now," Tyler said softly. "That's not wasting time." Richard looked at his son, really looked at him, and started crying harder. "How did you get so smart?" "Mommy taught me." The mention of Catherine made Richard's breath catch. But this time, he didn't run from it. "Tell me about her," Richard said. "Tell me what you remember." And Tyler did. For the next 57 minutes, while Richard's phone stayed silent on the dresser and the $100 million deal happened or didn't happen without him, Tyler talked about his mother. And Richard listened. 3 days had passed since Richard sat on that floor for an hour. 3 days of small victories that felt like miracles. Richard eating breakfast with Tyler, awkward and silent, but present. Richard canceling a board meeting to drive Tyler to a therapy appointment. Richard sitting in Tyler's room for 20 minutes before bed, not working, not talking, just being there while Tyler drew pictures. Tyler had eaten 9 meals in those 3 days. Small portions. Simple foods. But real progress. Harper watched it happen with cautious hope, knowing they'd cracked something open but hadn't yet dealt with what was inside. On the 4th morning, Harper found Richard in his study at 5 a.m., staring at a leather journal she'd never seen before. "Mr. Harrington." Richard looked up, eyes red-rimmed. He'd been crying. "Catherine's journal. I haven't been able to open it since she died. Found it in her nightstand 2 years ago and locked it in my desk drawer." Harper stepped into the office. "What changed?" "Tyler asked me yesterday what his mother's favorite food was." Richard's voice was hollow. "I couldn't remember. I've spent 2 years avoiding her memory so completely that I've forgotten her. And Tyler's forgotten too. He's losing her because I refuse to keep her alive." He opened the journal to a page marked with a faded receipt. "I read this last night." Harper moved closer, seeing Catherine's handwriting, elegant, flowing script that filled the page. Richard read aloud, voice shaking. Richard worked until midnight again. Tyler waited by the door for 3 hours, asking when Daddy was coming home. "I told him soon. I always tell him soon. But soon never comes. I'm raising our son alone while living with a man who's married to his company. I don't know how much longer I can do this." The date was 1 week before Catherine died. Harper's chest tightened. "There are 50 entries like this," Richard said. 50 desperate, angry, heartbroken entries about me choosing work over family. About Tyler asking why Daddy doesn't love him. About Catherine begging me to be present." His hands trembled. The last entry was the morning she died. He turned to the final page. The handwriting was rushed, angry, tear-stained in places where ink had smudged. Richard's voice broke as he read, "I asked for a divorce this morning. Richard said I was overreacting. Said I was being dramatic. Said I didn't understand the pressure he was under. He looked at me like I was the problem, like wanting my husband to know his son's name was unreasonable. I'm taking Tyler and leaving today. I can't watch Richard destroy our son the way he destroyed us." Silence filled the office like smoke. "She was leaving me," Richard whispered. "Not going to her sister's for a few days. Not taking a break. Leaving. Permanently. She'd already contacted a lawyer. Already looked at apartments. She was done." Drop a like and hit that subscribe button. Harper sank into the chair across from his desk. "Does Tyler know?" "No. Everyone thinks Catherine and I had a perfect marriage. That her death was a tragic accident during an ordinary day. Nobody knows we were screaming at each other that morning. Nobody knows I told her that if she left, she'd be the one destroying Tyler's stability." Richard laughed bitterly. "Turns out I destroyed it anyway. Mr. Harrington. She died hating me." Richard's voice cracked completely. "The last words I said to her were, 'Go ahead and leave. Tyler will understand who the real parent is when you're the one disrupting his life.' And she drove away crying so hard she didn't see the semi." The guilt in his voice was suffocating. "Tyler thinks his mother died loving both of us equally," Richard continued. "He thinks we were a happy family torn apart by random tragedy. But the truth is Catherine died trying to escape me. And I've let Tyler worship a marriage that was already dead." Harper didn't know what to say. This was worse than she'd imagined. "I need to tell him," Richard said. "The real truth. All of it. He deserves to know why his mother died. Why I've been hiding. Why I can barely look at him without seeing the marriage I destroyed. That will devastate him. Living with half-truths is already devastating him. Richard closed the journal. Tyler thinks he killed his mother by needing her. But the truth is I killed her by driving her away. He needs to know that. Harper's mind raced through the implications. Mr. Harrington, Tyler is 8 years old. Learning his parents' marriage was falling apart, that his mother wanted to leave, is better than believing he's responsible for her death. Richard stood up, decision made. I'm telling him today. Before Harper could argue, Richard walked out of the study and headed upstairs. Harper followed, heart pounding, knowing this conversation would either free Tyler or break him completely. They found Tyler in his room, already awake, building something with blocks. He looked up when Richard entered, surprise and cautious happiness crossing his face. Daddy? You're here early. I need to talk to you about Mommy. Richard sat on the floor across from Tyler. About what really happened the day she died. Tyler's hand stilled on the blocks. You said she was coming to get me from school. That's part of the truth. But not all of it. Richard took a shaky breath. Tyler, your mom and I had a big fight that morning. The biggest fight we'd ever had. Tyler's eyes went wide. About what? About me. About how I was never home. About how I missed your school plays and soccer games and bedtime stories because I was always working. Richard's voice steadied as he spoke. Your mom was angry. Really angry. And she had every right to be. But you loved each other, Tyler said, confused. You were always happy. We weren't always happy. Richard pulled out Catherine's journal. Your mom wrote in this every day. And in the weeks before she died, she wrote about how sad she was. How lonely. How much it hurt watching me choose work over family. Tyler stared at the journal like it might explode. The morning she died, Richard continued, your mom told me she wanted a divorce. She was going to take you and move out. Subscribe right now for part 5. Tyler's face went pale. Mommy was leaving. She was leaving me. Not you. Never you. Richard leaned forward. She loved you more than anything in the world. But she couldn't stay married to someone who was never there. Tears filled Tyler's eyes. So it was your fault she died? Not mine. Yes. Completely mine. Richard's voice broke. She wasn't rushing to school because you needed her, Tyler. She was rushing because she'd already left, and when the school called, she heard you were upset and turned around. She was driving angry and crying and distracted because of our fight. Because of things I said. Because I broke her heart that morning. Tyler's breath came in short gasps. What did you say to her? Richard flinched but didn't look away. I told her she was overreacting. That she was being dramatic. That if she took you away from me, you'd never forgive her for disrupting your life. He wiped tears from his face. I said terrible, cruel things because I was angry and scared and too proud to admit she was right about everything. She was right. Tyler whispered. About everything. I was a terrible husband. An absent father. I chose money and success over the people who loved me. And when your mom finally had enough and tried to save you from growing up with a father who was never there, I blamed her. Made her feel guilty. Sent her out that door crying. Tyler started rocking slightly, processing, overwhelmed. The accident happened because she was crying so hard she couldn't see clearly, Richard said. The police report said she ran a red light she probably never even saw. And that's on me, Tyler. Her death is on me. Not you. It was never you. For a long moment, Tyler didn't move. Then he asked the question Harper had been dreading, did Mommy stop loving me before she died? God, no. Richard's answer was immediate and fierce. Tyler, read this. He opened Catherine's journal to a page filled with drawings in the margins, little stick figures of Tyler that Catherine had doodled while writing. "Every single page has pictures of you," Richard said. "Every entry mentioned something you did that day. Something you said. Something that made her laugh. You were her entire world." Tyler traced one of the drawings with his finger. Richard flipped to another entry and read, "Tyler asked me today why Daddy doesn't play with him anymore. I didn't know what to say. How do I tell my 8-year-old that his father has forgotten how to love anything except work? Tyler deserves so much better. He deserves a father who shows up. Who cares? Who chooses him first. I need to get him away from this before he learns that love looks like absence." Hit subscribe. Don't miss what happens next. Tyler's tears fell onto the journal pages. "She was trying to save you from me," Richard said. "From growing up thinking the way I treated her was normal. From learning that love means always coming second to work. She died trying to give you a better life than I was providing." Tyler looked up at his father with devastated eyes. "So you killed her by being mean, and I killed her by needing her to turn around?" "No. Yes." Tyler's voice rose. "If I hadn't called the school, if I hadn't been upset, if I'd just been okay without my lunch, she wouldn't have turned around. She'd have kept driving away and been alive." The logic was heartbreaking and undeniable. Richard reached for Tyler, but the boy pulled away. "Tyler, please. You're both the reason," Tyler shouted. "You for making her leave and me for making her come back. We both killed her." He scrambled to his feet and ran to his closet, yanking open the door. Harper started to follow, but Richard held up a hand. "Let him show us," Richard said quietly. "He needs to show us." Tyler emerged carrying a cardboard box. He dumped it on the floor. Food containers. Dozens of them. All carefully sealed, labeled with dates going back months. Inside each one, perfectly preserved meals. Sandwiches wrapped in plastic. Cookies in Ziploc bags. Fruit in sealed containers. All untouched. All rotting. "What is this?" Richard breathed. Tyler's voice was small, broken. "Offerings. For Mommy. I thought if I saved enough food, if I sacrificed enough meals, she'd come back. Or at least stop being hungry wherever she is." Harper's hand flew to her mouth. "Every time someone made me eat, I'd hide some and save it for her," Tyler continued. "I'd put it in here and tell her I was sorry. Sorry for calling. Sorry for needing her. Sorry for making her turn around." Richard stared at the box of rotting food, months of meals his son had refused, not because of sensory issues or autism, but because Tyler was trying to feed his dead mother. "I thought if I got hungry enough," Tyler whispered, "Mommy wouldn't be hungry anymore. I thought if I got small enough, I could trade places with her. I thought." His voice broke completely. Richard pulled Tyler into his arms. This time, Tyler didn't resist. He collapsed into his father's chest and sobbed, 2 years of grief and guilt and desperate magical thinking pouring out in gasping, broken cries. "She's not hungry," Richard said, tears streaming down his own face. "Tyler, she's not hungry and she's not coming back and none of it was your fault. But I called. And she answered because she loved you. That's not your fault. That's love." Richard held Tyler tighter. "I'm the one who created the situation. I'm the one who drove her away. You were just a kid who missed his mom." Tyler cried harder. "I miss her so much. I know. I miss her too." They held each other on the floor surrounded by rotting food and 2 years of accumulated grief, finally mourning together instead of alone. Harper watched, tears streaming down her own face, as father and son shared the same pain for the first time. After a long while, Tyler pulled back and looked at Richard with swollen eyes. "Daddy?" "Yeah. If we're both sorry, if we both miss her, if we both made mistakes," Tyler's voice shook. Can we be hungry together instead of alone? The question broke Richard's heart and rebuilt it simultaneously. Yes, Richard whispered. Yes, we can do that. Tyler nodded slowly. Then he looked at the box of offerings. Should we throw it away? Not yet. Richard wiped Tyler's tears, then his own. I think we should take it to Mommy's grave. Tell her we're sorry. Tell her we love her. And then let her go. Tyler searched his father's face. You think she'd want that? I think she'd want us to stop starving ourselves as punishment. Richard's voice broke. I think she'd want us to live. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered the question that changed everything, Daddy, will you teach me how? Richard's hands shook as he carried the box of rotting food to his car. Tyler walked beside him, silent and pale, clutching one of his mother's favorite scarves that Harper had found in a storage closet. The cemetery was 20 minutes away, a drive Richard had avoided for 18 months. He'd sent flowers through a service. Made donations in Catherine's name. Done everything except actually visit her grave. Now, with Tyler beside him and a box full of his son's grief in the trunk, Richard couldn't hide anymore. The drive was quiet. Tyler stared out the window. Richard gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. Twice he almost turned around. Twice Tyler seemed to sense it and looked at him with those hollow, hopeful eyes that made retreat impossible. Harper had offered to come. Richard had refused. Some bridges you had to cross alone. Or in this case, with the son you've been running from for 2 years. The cemetery gates loomed ahead. Richard's foot hesitated on the gas pedal. Daddy? Tyler's voice was small. Are you scared? Richard could have lied. Should have lied. Given his son some illusion that fathers didn't break down at gravesides. Instead, he told the truth, terrified. Tyler nodded like he understood. Me too. They parked near Catherine's section. Richard sat frozen in the driver's seat, staring at manicured grass and marble headstones that all looked the same from a distance. What if I can't do it? Richard whispered. What if I get to her grave and fall apart? Tyler was quiet for a moment. Then I'll sit with you while you do. The simple offer, the role reversal of a child comforting his parent, broke something loose in Richard's chest. He looked at Tyler, this brave, damaged boy who'd spent 2 years trying to feed a ghost, and realized his son had been stronger than him all along. Okay, Richard said. Let's go. They walked together across the grass. Richard carried the box. Tyler carried the scarf. Neither spoke. Catherine's headstone was simple. Elegant. Exactly what she would have wanted. Fresh flowers sat in the vase, the service Richard paid for, the empty gesture that let him pretend he was still connected to her. Drop a like and subscribe right now. Richard set the box down and stared at his wife's name carved in marble. Catherine and Harrington. Beloved wife and mother. The words felt inadequate. She'd been so much more than that. Tyler knelt and placed the scarf on the grass. Hi, Mommy. The casual greeting, so normal, so heartbreaking, made Richard's throat close. I brought you food, Tyler continued, voice steady despite tears streaming down his face. I've been saving it for you. In case you were hungry. But Daddy says you're not hungry anymore. Richard knelt beside his son. Catherine, his voice broke immediately. I don't know where to start. Tyler looked at him, waiting. I'm sorry, Richard finally managed. For everything. For choosing work over you. For not listening when you begged me to be present. For saying terrible things the morning you died. For letting you drive away angry and scared Anne. He couldn't continue. Sobs racked his body, 2 years of suppressed grief exploding out of him in gasping, ugly cries that he'd never let anyone see. Tyler scooted closer and took his father's hand. They sat like that for a long time. Richard crying. Tyler holding his hand. Catherine's grave silent between them. Eventually, Richard's sobs quieted to shaky breaths. He wiped his face with his sleeve. "I've been hiding from you. From Tyler. From everything that hurt. And it almost killed our son." Tyler squeezed his hand tighter. "He's been starving himself as punishment," Richard continued, speaking to the headstone like Catherine could hear. "Saving food for you like some kind of sacrifice. Because I was so busy drowning in guilt that I never told him the truth, that your death wasn't his fault. It was mine." The wind rustled through nearby trees. A bird called somewhere in the distance. Life continuing around them while they sat with death. "But I'm done hiding," Richard said. "I'm done letting guilt destroy what's left of our family. Tyler deserves better. You deserved better. And I'm going to spend every day trying to become the father and husband I should have been." Hit that subscribe button now. Tyler opened the box of preserved food. Together, they unpacked each container. Sandwiches. Cookies. Fruit. Meals spanning months of desperate magical thinking. "We're sorry, Mommy," Tyler said. "Both of us. For different reasons. But we're both sorry." Richard nodded. "And we're going to stop punishing ourselves. We're going to eat. We're going to live. We're going to remember you with love instead of guilt." Tyler looked at his father. "Should we bury the food here?" Richard considered. Burying seemed too permanent. Too much like sealing away the past without processing it. "Let's leave it for now," Richard said. "Let the earth take it naturally. Let it feed something living instead of preserving something dead." Tyler seemed to understand the metaphor. They arranged the containers around Catherine's headstone, not as an altar, but as a release. "Goodbye, offerings," Tyler whispered. "I don't need you anymore." Richard put his arm around Tyler's shoulders. For once, Tyler didn't tense or pull away. He leaned into his father's embrace. "Daddy?" Tyler said after a while. "What happens now?" "Now we go home. We eat dinner together. We talk about Mommy without crying. Or with crying if we need to. We learn how to be a family again. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. And Harper, if she'll stay." Tyler nodded. Then asked the question that mattered most: "Will you really be there? Not just your body, but you?" Richard looked at his son, this incredible, resilient boy who'd nearly died waiting for his father to come back. "I'll be there. I promise. And when I mess up, because I will mess up, you call me on it. You tell me. You don't disappear to make room for my mistakes. Okay." Tyler leaned his head against Richard's shoulder. "Daddy?" "Yeah. I'm hungry." Subscribe for the final part of the story. The words were simple. But they meant everything. Richard smiled through his tears. "Yeah. Me too." They stood up together, leaving the offerings to decompose naturally. Leaving the guilt at Catherine's grave where it belonged. Walking back to the car not as a broken father and dying son, but as two people who'd finally chosen to live. On the drive home, Tyler asked, "Can we get burgers? Real ones with fries?" Richard laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in 2 years. "Yeah, buddy. We can get burgers." Tyler smiled. "Can I have a milkshake too?" "You can have whatever you want." Because feeding his son wasn't about nutrition anymore. It was about showing up. Being present. Choosing Tyler over guilt, over work, over everything else that had seemed more important for so long. They stopped at a diner. Sat in a booth. Ordered burgers and fries and milkshakes. And when the food arrived, Richard didn't check his phone. Didn't think about work. didn't disappear. He sat across from Tyler and ate with him. Just two people sharing a meal. The simplest thing in the world. The hardest thing Richard had done in 2 years. Tyler took a bite of his burger. Chewed. Swallowed. Smiled. "It tastes better when you're here," he said. Richard's eyes filled with tears again. "Everything's better when we're together." And for the first time since Catherine died, both of them believed it. 6 months later, Harper stood in the kitchen doorway watching something impossible. Richard and Tyler sat at the breakfast table, not the formal dining room monstrosity, but the small kitchen table they'd moved into the center of the room. Pancakes. Bacon. Orange juice. Tyler's plate was half empty, and he was laughing at something Richard had just said. Laughing. The boy who'd been disappearing 6 months ago now had color in his cheeks. Weight on his bones. Light in his eyes that had been dead for 2 years. Richard caught Harper watching and smiled. Not the hollow, desperate smile from before. A real one. "Harper, join us," Tyler called. "Dad's trying to flip pancakes and he's terrible at it." "I'm getting better," Richard protested, gesturing at a slightly lopsided pancake on the griddle. Harper slid into the third chair they'd added to the table. Tyler immediately pushed the syrup toward her and started talking about the book he was reading, something about space explorers. Richard listened with full attention, phone nowhere in sight, asking questions that proved he'd actually been paying attention to Tyler's interests. This was the miracle Harper had been hired to create. Not just getting Tyler to eat, but rebuilding the connection that made eating together matter. Drop that like and subscribe now. After breakfast, Richard helped Tyler clear the dishes, another small ritual they'd established. Tyler washed, Richard dried, and they talked about their day. Simple. Normal. The kind of ordinary moment that felt extraordinary after everything they'd survived. "Harper." Tyler turned to her, hands still soapy. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That first day, when you made me the peanut butter sandwich, what made you know that would work?" Harper considered the question carefully. "I didn't know it would work. I just knew you needed to not be alone anymore." Tyler tilted his head, thinking. "That's what you asked me, right? What if we ate together, just us?" "That's right." "That was the question that changed everything," Tyler said softly. "Not about the food. About not being alone." Richard had stopped drying, listening intently. "I spent 2 years eating alone or being forced to eat," Tyler continued. "Food became this scary, lonely thing connected to all my guilt about Mom. But when you sat with me, when you made it about being together instead of about eating, it stopped being scary." Harper felt tears prick her eyes. "You were never the problem, Tyler. You just needed someone to see that loneliness was starving you more than the food refusal." Richard set down his dish towel and moved closer. "I should have seen it. Should have realized you weren't eating because every meal reminded you of being abandoned. You couldn't see it because you were too busy being alone too," Tyler said with wisdom beyond his 8 years. "We were both starving ourselves. Just differently." The three of them stood in the kitchen, sharing a truth that had taken months of painful work to uncover. "So what changed for you, Dad?" Tyler asked. Richard crouched to Tyler's eye level. "I learned that showing up is more important than solving. That being present beats being perfect. That you didn't need me to fix you, you needed me to sit with you." Hit subscribe right now. Tyler nodded slowly. "And I learned Mom's death wasn't punishment for needing her. And that being hungry is okay. And that eating with people who love me makes food taste better." Harper smiled through her tears. "You both learned you didn't have to carry everything alone." Later that afternoon, they drove to the cemetery together, all three of them. It had become a Saturday ritual. They'd sit by Catherine's grave, tell her about their week, and share a picnic lunch right there on the grass. Today, Tyler unpacked sandwiches he'd helped make that morning. Richard spread out the blanket. Harper set out drinks. "Hi, Mom," Tyler said casually, like greeting an old friend. "Dad only burned 2 pancakes this morning. That's a new record." Richard laughed. "I'm improving." They ate together in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when people have learned they don't need to fill every moment with words. Tyler took a bite of his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully, then looked at Harper. "Are you staying? Like, forever?" Harper had been wondering when this question would come. Her employment contract had technically ended months ago, but she'd stayed on, not as a maid, but as family. "Do you want me to stay?" "Yes," Tyler and Richard said simultaneously. Harper smiled. "Then I'm staying." Tyler grinned and took another bite. Richard reached over and squeezed Harper's hand in gratitude. They finished their picnic, told Catherine about Tyler's upcoming soccer game and Richard's decision to reduce his work hours permanently, and packed up their things. Walking back to the car, Tyler between Richard and Harper, the boy asked one more question. "Harper, what made you know we could be fixed?" Harper looked at this family she'd helped rebuild, broken pieces that had learned to fit together differently but stronger. "Because broken things that want to heal always can," she said. "You just needed someone to ask the right question. What if you weren't alone?" Tyler recited. "Exactly." Richard pulled Tyler into a side hug. "Best question anyone's ever asked us." Subscribe for more stories like this. That night, they ate dinner together, all 3 of them at the kitchen table. Tyler had 2 servings. Richard told bad jokes. Harper refereed their playful arguments about whether pizza counted as a vegetable. And in that ordinary moment, surrounded by laughter and full plates and people who chose to show up, Tyler finally understood what Harper had known all along. The cure for starvation wasn't food. It was love that stayed present enough to be tasted.